I never get out of the house. I stay home all the time. I never do anything fun. I'm a housewife. I hate that word. I prefer to be called domestic goddess.
In the mid-1980s, bold, brash Roseanne Barr rocked the stand-up comedy world.
You really do have to be half out of your nut, or you just ain't funny.
The husbands, they think that the wife knows where everything is. I hate that. Like, they think the uterus is a tracking device.
Nobody was more real than Roseanne. She was destined to be the poster person for housewives.
Her down-to-earth brand of blue-collar comedy made her a comedy legend, the megastar of her own top-rated, long-running sitcom.
There are some people who come out, and it's like the whole country's talking about them, and they just changed the culture, and she did.
She was on every magazine you can think of.
She could be shocking. She was a rule breaker. Roseanne never played it safe.
When I think about Roseanne, I think fearless, I think brave, and damn funny.
I'm a bad girl. I'm too rock and roll. I'm gonna say it and you till I take my last breath.
Her life and career had its ups and downs, but Roseanne made it back to the heights.
There was a certain kind of magic quality. Here, Roseanne was coming back 30 years later.
She finally got back on the horse, succeeded, and it went right down the toilet.
With her show on the top of the ratings, Roseanne tweeted 18 scandalous words that canceled her comeback.
I did something I wouldn't do if I hadn't been on that Ambien.
After the tweet, they remove her from the show. How can we continue if the world thinks you're a racist?
There was always that frozen moment of horror watching it unfold and going, what am I gonna do with this?
Right now, an in-depth personal account of the sudden rise, superstardom, and ultimate fall from grace of America's domestic goddess, Roseanne Barr, kicked out of Hollywood. In a career that has spanned more than 4 decades, Roseanne Barr earned fame on her own terms. Her caustic wit and earthy, working-class attitude made her a trailblazing stand-up comic and the star of her own sitcom.
She was the domestic goddess. She was speaking to everybody who's had a mom, a wife, a sister, like Roseanne. It was real.
Me and my husband, we just found this great new method of birth control that really, really works. Every night before we go to bed, we spend an hour with our kids.
What every housewife in America kind of felt at one point.
She's always authentic, and she doesn't hold back. And the same energy that made her is the same energy that hurt her.
You regret your Twitter post?
Roseanne's edgy, irreverent approach attracted both fans and detractors. And after a triumphant return to television in 2018, the brazen comic legend, who never censored herself, sent a scandalous tweet heard around the world.
40 minutes later, my show was canceled. And I was called a racist. It was politically expedient for them to on my name.
She made some bad decisions. That's why you're here talking to me, because she was a little nutty. You know, everything is a summary execution these days without jury, without gathering the facts. I mean, this is an accusation of racism. Her response is, I didn't know the person was black. I believe her.
You just imagine if someone snatched your career over something that you knew was not true, and you were not even given the opportunity to explain it or apologize. Can you imagine a person that is fighting for equal rights behind the scenes, that now you're reading headlines that you're a racist and we gotta throw you away? If the world only got a chance to see that woman when there were no cameras rolling, we would be ashamed of ourselves for trying to throw her away.
66 years before she sent that fateful tweet, Roseanne Barr was born on November 3rd, 1952, in Salt Lake City, Utah. She was the oldest of 4 kids born into a Jewish family. Her father, Jerome Barr, was a salesman, and her mom, Helen, was a bookkeeper and cashier.
So you're an outcast right away, just because you're a Jew. a little Jewish girl from a family that's not particularly of wealth.
I didn't know it was weird that you didn't have any furniture in your house. My dad, he told us to tell everyone that we were redecorating, which is why we didn't have no furniture. My parents were kind of crazy too. They started out as a married couple living in a chicken coop. So it's not a regular American story. I knew I was a crazy person from a really crazy family in a really crazy town.
Her dad's family came to America from Russia, changing their name from Borisovsky to Barr. Her mom's parents came from Eastern Europe. Roseanne was profoundly influenced by her maternal grandmother.
Grandmother was just a tough lady who, in wartime, was not in the best situation.
And my mother's mother was born in Lithuania, so she'd been driven out of her home there, and she'd survived quite a bit of horror.
They were not wealthy people by any means. Her grandmother used to take in boarders. And as a child, she sucked all this up.
Every Passover, we did sing the song, "That Would Have Been Enough," Dayenu. And I would change the words to, "Had God not just made me fat, that would have been enough. If God had not just made me a Jew in Utah, that would have been enough. Had God not just made me a poor Jew who was fat in Utah, that would have been enough." There was never going to be any way I could make any sense of it. All I could ever do was laugh at it.
Roseanne's family kept their Jewish heritage quiet and attended Mormon services. Young Roseanne was even elected president of a Mormon youth group. She was an oddball in an odd land.
People were pretty weird, from the dentist to the grocery store guy. A lot of weird people. But I'd go home and watch it on the TV, like, how come I never see on that TV like I see in real life?
Roseanne was 16 years old when she experienced a life-altering event. In the fall of 1968, she was severely injured in a car crash, suffering a traumatic brain injury that caused memory loss and nightmares.
She's hit by a car, and if I remember correctly, the hood ornament actually penetrates her head. And then she herself asked to be put away because she couldn't get a grasp on things.
Roseanne's brain injury triggered a profound change in her personality, and she spent 8 months in a state mental hospital.
I went to the mental hospital, and then I went to the mountains of Colorado, Georgetown. I lived in an artist commune for a while in a trailer. I met a guy there, married him, had some kids with him, got a bigger trailer.
On February 4th, 1974, 21-year-old Roseanne married motel clerk Bill Pentland. They had 3 children together.
I got 3 babies. Nobody's ever gonna help me. I don't even have $6 to buy Pampers. I don't even have cab fare to go get no Pampers. And nobody's ever gonna help me.
Roseanne was a young mother of 3 in 1980 when she began doing stand-up at Denver comedy clubs. It was the modest start of a rapid rise that would take an unlikely Colorado housewife to the heights of Hollywood stardom.
So I get on stage and do heckler lines. And then I just keep at it, and write material, and that's how I did it. End up in LA and on stage and get a sitcom. That whole journey. First time on stage to get in a sitcom. That was about 8 years.
All I can say is, poke me with a fork, I think I'm done. Bye.
A domestic goddess is born.
Well, he says to me, "Hey, Roseanne, don't you think we should talk about our sexual problems?"
There were female comics who made fun of being a housewife and said, not like her.
Like I'm gonna turn up Wheel of Fortune for that.
You related to this woman that talked about working and taking care of a family, and things were hard, and I got a problem with my man, and we could relate.
And when the tsunami of fame hits, Roseanne's home life is caught in the storm.
It's real hard trying to fit into a regular family life when you're crazy, and it can't be done very well.
Roseanne Barr fled her home in Utah and moved to Colorado at the age of 18. 10 years, a husband, and 3 kids later, she was working the local comedy clubs, spinning the trials of marriage and motherhood into comedy gold.
So now I'm really involved in this Jerry Lewis telethon deal. We're trying to save up enough money to send him over to France.
When I was a kid, my mom and her friends, they had this book, Fascinating Womanhood. It was how to get your husband to be more of a man. If you were more of a feminine woman, he'd be more of a masculine man. And there was this one chapter on how to be a domestic goddess. And they used to sit around and talk about that in their lady meetings every week. Boy, I used to stand there behind the curtain because my mom was a beautiful woman. I was her fat daughter that chewed on my own hair. I'd watch all the beautiful women and they were wanting to be domestic goddesses, and I just have really hateful thoughts about them. It stewed in there till I went down there for that stand-up thing. First I did this really political act, and they all hated me.
But Roseanne's younger sister, Geraldine, who acted as her manager, came up with an inspired idea.
In the early days, her sister used to go around with her. Her sister was the helper with words and sometimes jokes.
My sister goes, I got it. You do the domestic goddess thing. I go, oh, hell yeah. I didn't exactly look like all them beautiful women, but why not? I should think that way too, you know?
I never get out of the house. I stay home all the time. I never do anything fun. I'm a housewife. I hate that word. I prefer to be called domestic goddess.
Roseanne's domestic goddess routine was an instant hit. Brash, original, and relatable.
You related to this woman that talked about working and taking care of a family, and things were hard and it was tight and it was a struggle, and I got a problem with my man, and you can just relate to her.
A lot of stuff bugs me about husbands. You know, like when they all the time want to talk to you. I hate that.
That's your aunt, that's your cousin, that's your mama, that's your friend. That's your daddy's side piece.
Well, he says to me, hey, Roseanne, don't you think we should talk about our sexual problems? You know, like I'm gonna turn off Wheel of Fortune for that.
Roseanne at that time came along where there wasn't anybody who was married and giving the opinions of what family life was and what it was like to raise children and what it was like to try to keep a relationship on the tracks.
There were female comics who made fun of being a housewife and said, not like her. She had a channel to the blue-collar person in this country that was so strong. And she was also, I think people forget, a damn good comic.
The husbands, they think that the wife knows where everything is. I hate that. Huh? Like they think the uterus is a tracking device.
Roseanne is one of the few people that spoke from authenticity.
As my husband would say, she's a comedic purist. She sees the funny. She's brave, and she's unapologetic about her bravery and about the gift of laughter.
I like making real people laugh. I never liked making snobs laugh. That don't do for me. In fact, I get pissed when people make snobs laugh. I get pissed at comics that make know-it-alls laugh, too. I like to make regular people laugh. I love it. And I love to make regular people laugh at snobs.
Roseanne was on an amateur night, and I happened to be there. And I watched her act. I loved the hook, and I just found her extremely funny. And I went to the owner, and I said, you know, I'd like her on the show with me. He said, we don't find her funny. We don't find women funny. She's a pain in the butt. And I said, well, that's how I feel about you and the way you run the club, and I'm here. Put her on the show. And he did, and then I took her on the road here and there, and then a certain amount of time, a few of us convinced her it was time to go to Los Angeles.
She honed her craft. Like every great comic, you train for the day when you get that opportunity.
That opportunity came for 33-year-old Roseanne in 1985 when she came to Los Angeles to audition for Mitzi Shore at her club, the Comedy Store, the launch pad for many a rising star.
The Comedy Store was the craziest of all the times, which I've never even talked about anywhere because, you know, I can't even process how crazy a time that was.
Shore was so impressed by Roseanne's 5-minute audition, she put the domestic goddess on the main stage that very same night.
So I got 3 jobs that first night. I got The Tonight Show. I got the role as Rodney Dangerfield's wife. And I got a part on George Slaughter's Funny Girls.
Fat moms are better than skinny moms. Let's have pudding, Oreos, and marshmallows.
Of the 3 opportunities she earned that night, the biggest was her first appearance on The Tonight Show.
The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson was the platform for stand-up comedians. To get your first break and your launch, there was so much pressure. Back then, there were tens of millions of people watching it, and she was one of those people that just seized the moment.
God, it was just unreal. It was unreal. Just a dream come true.
Carson fell in love with her, and I think so did the rest of the country.
It was real, and nobody was more real than Roseanne.
And she took that Tonight Show set and catapulted into the stratosphere.
Superstar singer Julio Iglesias was also a guest on the show that night.
He signs me up to open for him in 18 cities. So I call my husband. Well, you can quit the post office, and you got to move all the because I'm working in Las Vegas, baby.
Overnight, the outcast oddball from Utah found herself on Hollywood's A-list.
There are some people who come out and it's like the whole country's talking about them and they just changed the culture, and she did.
Roseanne was such a trailblazer because she was one of those people who took risks. As a comic, you have to live on that fine line and that edge because that's what makes you so special.
I like to thank all the people I stepped on and slept with, and so would my husband.
But red-hot Roseanne soon learned that sudden stardom had a downside.
Well, I felt unbalanced. You know, it was part exhilaration, part terror, awestruck, and then like the weird would happen. People talking about me on the phone 3 feet from me as if I don't even exist. It doesn't matter to them that I know I'm being spoken about as a product.
Being treated like a commodity was one thing, but Roseanne also found that, in some ways, she was still an outcast.
Nobody ever wanted to f me, so I never got invited to any of their parties or anything in Hollywood. That used to really piss me off until later when I realized what was going on at the parties. I was glad.
There's more drama than comedy on the set of Roseanne.
It wasn't all quiet on the Western Front. She was a volatile character, you know.
And after one marriage ends, another begins.
Being crazy, we tend to pick people who are as crazy or even crazier than us.
And later, hear from Roseanne on the controversial tweet heard round the world.
Do you regret your Twitter post?
I thank you for your love and approval, because I couldn't live without it. Thanks.
In 1987, 35-year-old Roseanne took her real-life experience as a struggling working-class mom and turned it into a situation comedy on ABC. The executive producers of The Cosby Show helmed the series, named for its star, Roseanne.
She did an HBO special, and I guess Carsey Warner saw that, and then she was offered the show.
It's one thing to navigate with fellow comedians in a comedy club. Now all of a sudden, you're being paid more money than you've ever been paid in your life. And you have Marcy Carsey, Tom Werner, Karen Mandenbeck, a group of people who believe in you, love you, stepped up to the plate, and made it happen. They're in control. But it's your vision, your character, your name on the show. Then you have writers churning out scripts that are supposed to be your voice when you've been writing for yourself your whole life.
Veteran composer Dan Folliart and his partner were hired to score the theme song and music for Roseanne.
People were watching Dynasty. They were watching all these rich people and everything. And Roseanne, her character was just this raw, kind of energetic person that totally different than the stuff that was on TV at the time.
You had never seen overweight people kissing, hugging. It was a regular family. They lost jobs. They struggled to pay their mortgage, just like real life.
The chemistry between John Goodman and Roseanne was just amazing. Everything was just perfection. And I knew that something really good was going to happen.
Happen it did. The show's fall debut was viewed by more than 21 million households, the season's highest-rated premiere. The debut of Roseanne was a ratings winner for ABC and a trailblazing triumph for Roseanne Barr. She broke barriers on the small screen with storylines about racism and showed TV's first same-sex kiss. But trouble simmered behind the scenes.
I'm sure she had so much going through her head, but you also had writers that were saying, but this is what Roseanne would say. And she'd go, but I'm Roseanne. What are you telling me what I would say for? And they just couldn't get it through their heads.
It wasn't all quiet on the Western Front. She was a volatile character, you know, and a lot of people had a difficult time with her, you know.
A lot of the showrunners think they're the stars. But if the show's called Roseanne, you want to lean towards what she wants, or at least hear her out and give her alternatives if you don't like something. But it was them against her.
On the home front, Roseanne's marriage to Bill Pentland was on the rocks. 4 days after they divorced, she married comedian Tom Arnold. Their turbulent 4-year marriage was a match made in tabloid heaven.
You really do have to be half out of your nut. Or you just ain't funny. The crazier you are, the better. It's real hard trying to fit into a regular family life when you're crazy. So a lot of us will try to marry up with someone that we think, oh, they'll be able to do the normal for me, and then I won't look so crazy. But being crazy, we tend to pick people who are as crazy or even crazier than us. So there's no help for us.
There was no help for Roseanne when 6 months after marrying Tom Arnold, on July 25, 1990, she performed the Star-Spangled Banner before a nationally televised San Diego Padres ballgame. Her shrieking rendition of the national anthem, punctuated by a crotch grab, was panned as vulgar and disrespectful. Roseanne was widely condemned by baseball fans, sports writers, and even President George H.W. Bush, who called her performance disgraceful. But she later said that the Padres had suggested she bring humor to the song.
She thought it was funny. You grab your crotch and spit. That's what ball players do. But a president of the United States has to make a comment like he has nothing better to do. When you're controversial, when you're outspoken, they wait for you, the media, and they jump on that moment and they run with it because it's news.
Roseanne managed to survive the scandal, but her stormy marriage to Tom Arnold was over less than 4 years later. Roseanne filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences.
The only people I don't treat well are people I divorce. No.
Oh, this is Ben, my new husband, Ben.
Roseanne wasn't single long. Less than a year later, the comedy icon wed her former personal security guard, Ben Thomas, and gave birth to their son, Buck.
And my husband's 28, and I'm pregnant again with my 5th baby, so I think that makes me the undisputed queen of all trailer trash.
Then, the sitcom that made Roseanne a star ended in 1997 after 9 seasons. She followed up that success with The Roseanne Show, a talk show that ran for 2 years before it was canceled in 2000. Roseanne's marriage to Ben Thomas was canceled 2 years later. That same year, she met Johnny Argent.
The way he is about art, music, literature, thinking. He lives a life of the mind, and I really love that. But I never had a boyfriend with any brains before. I just had like some working guys. They were cool, but you know, it's not like they can quote a lot of poets.
We met online. I started to talk to her. She had a writing contest. I sort of won. We started to talk and talk. And one day the phone rang and she offered me a job to write for her. Then after talking for a long time, we started to go into the personal place and really dig each other on that level.
In 2005, Roseanne hit the road with a stand-up comedy world tour. Her return to the stage culminated in an HBO comedy special, followed by a headlining run at the Sahara Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas.
You're all fired!
In 2009, she made an appearance on The Monique Show.
It was a late-night talk show, and we needed star power. And when the phone call was made to Roseanne Barr, she didn't flinch. She said, "Where and what time? You tell my girl I'm there." When the cameras weren't rolling and the microphones were off, this woman pulled me up and she said, "Listen, you are the real deal. Don't you let them use you up. Don't you let them take advantage of you, and you get what you're supposed to get." This is coming from a woman in comedy that's had to go through the struggles and the hurdles and the fights and had to have the conversations that was not easy to have. She wanted to make sure that this little black girl was protected.
I think you're totally crushed in life until you become funny.
Seeking refuge from the pressures of Hollywood, Roseanne purchased a macadamia nut farm on the Big Island of Hawaii. By 2011, she was spending most of her time in self-imposed exile at her 46-acre tropical retreat.
I would see her in Hawaii once a year, and she seemed very happy on a macadamia farm, but then, look, she got her second calling and hit it out of the park.
A comedy legend makes a triumphant return to network television.
We had no idea if this was going to be something that people could resonate with. It was amazing.
But Roseanne's stunning sitcom comeback was soon undone by an 18-word tweet.
I should have not did it, but by God, I was really pissed that day.
Do you regret your Twitter post?
This was not about racism. This was about the beginning of this heinous, dangerous cancel culture bull.
Anyway, everything is all politically correct and totally uptight. And you know why we're so uptight? Because the Puritans came here, and the really fun people stayed in England.
In the summer of 2011, Roseanne Barr once again turned her real life into a TV show with Roseanne's Nuts, a reality series about life on her macadamia farm in Hawaii. A month later, she stunned fans and foes alike when she went on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno to announce her candidacy for President of the United States.
I declared patriarchal politics dead and a new dawn of intelligent feminine divinity, the end of politics run by idiot men and their inability to solve any problem whatsoever. The rich don't always have to keep getting richer and the poor always getting poorer.
The future Madam President.
Yep.
In the 2012 election, Roseanne was on the ballot in California, Colorado, and Florida, winning 67,326 votes. She herself voted for President Obama. But after Donald Trump announced his run for president in 2015, she was intrigued.
Why do people like Roseanne, and she is not the only one I know, who is not a conservative? She's a socialist, for crying out loud. How do they get sucked into this vortex? I had it out with Roseanne about this. We did an open letter to her on the air, saying to her, why are you a Trumper? Your show begins with this scene of you and the husband, and you have to divide up your pills because you're so poor. Trust me, Trump's policies are not helping with this issue. Why are you backing this guy?
She dared to have the nads to think, let's give this brash, loudmouth New Yorker businessman a shot at this. We've had the Clintons. She had the audacity to do that. And this was one of the first big, dangerous shots fired in this cancel culture as far as I'm concerned.
I don't really ever set out to do controversial things. It's just stuff I do ends up controversial.
Trump had been president for more than a year in May of 2017, when ABC greenlit a revival of the classic sitcom Roseanne, with most of the original cast and Roseanne serving as executive producer.
People were looking for something that had values from a voice who's the greatest voice and the biggest expert on what it's like to be part of an American family that isn't wealthy and entitled.
I was there for the table read. There was a certain kind of magic quality. Here, Roseanne was walking back into the room after all these years. We had no idea if anyone would even like this thing. It was amazing.
The Roseanne revival debuted in the spring of 2018 to stellar ratings despite mixed reviews. But as with the show's first incarnation a decade earlier, there was a rising tension between the scenes.
She said, Monique, they still look at me as a maid and poor white trailer trash. Your opinion is not valued because you should just be thankful you got invited to the party.
I know for a fact that everybody in that writer's room would not accept the fact that Roseanne was not pro-Clinton.
I'm gonna guess 100% of those writers are liberals or Democrats and didn't want to hear any Trump nonsense.
The network also grew concerned with Roseanne's use of social media. It was problematic to have their star defending the polarizing President Trump on social media, promoting conspiracy theories and retweeting fake news.
Any tweet that was not, I love Hillary Clinton, I got a call for it.
Roseanne tweeted about a conspiracy theory involving David Hogg, a survivor of the Parkland school shooting, falsely claiming that Hogg gave a Nazi salute at a rally. She later deleted her tweet.
Young people wearing armbands and saluting, I don't like the look of that in America. But I removed it every time they called, and they called frequently.
There would be rumblings like, can you believe what Roseanne said?
We always knew she was a little crazy, okay? She's America's crazy aunt, but she's not a bad person. Her life has not been a bowl of cherries. And she's had mental issues, and we just accepted that with her.
And everyone was begging me to give up my Twitter. Everyone, my kids were trying to lock me out, but I wouldn't because it's like, I just couldn't. I'm a goddamn American. I'm not gonna do it. I'm a comic. I'm a bad girl. I'm too rock and roll. I'm gonna say it and you till I take my last breath.
She was doing some pretty outrageous stuff on Twitter, but I mean, you didn't feel it would be anything that might lead to the cancellation of the show.
Meanwhile, the Roseanne revival was a ratings success. ABC renewed the series for another season, but 2 months later, catastrophe struck.
I was with Roseanne on the day of the tweet, heard around the world as I call it. I don't know anything about tweeting. She's in her room as usual, in her mom's room, the home she grew up in.
Roseanne was staying at her childhood home in Salt Lake City when, earlier in the day, her show's producers called.
So, you know, I thought, well, what's the worst thing I could do? And the worst thing I could do was stay in bed with my computer.
At 2:45 in the morning, on May 29th, 2018, Roseanne responded to a Twitter thread about Valerie Jarrett, a senior advisor to former President Obama. Her tweet read, Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes had a baby. A bomb had been set off.
I should have not did it, but by God, I was really pissed that day. And I did something I wouldn't do if I hadn't been on that Ambien. It makes you do a lot of crazy.
Not long after that, she gets a phone call, and I hear her furiously say, racist! Iran isn't a race, you idiot! Shortly after that, it began to ring some more.
This is a tweet. Okay, yes, it's horrible what's said, and things are really, people deserve to be upset.
And then all of a sudden, I get an email. She made this terrible tweet.
I didn't know who the hell VJ was or what any of this was.
She said, Monique, I didn't know she was black. And I said, Roseanne, I understand because I didn't either.
But many were outraged and offended by the insensitive tweet, and the public outcry was swift and loud.
She saw one Planet of the Apes movie, and to her it was about anarchy. She was really just trying to say that woman and what she's doing is going to cause anarchy in the Middle East. But they went, oh, she's pointing her out as an ape. But there's not a racist bone in this woman's body.
Roseanne Barr was the one that went into the ABC board meetings and said, you gotta get me some black writers. Roseanne Barr is a white Jewish woman. who was trying to get a documentary done about a black man named Malcolm X. And she was partnering up with a black man who was a Muslim from the Nation of Islam to try to get this documentary done. Now, you know how the new generation say, take that tea? Wrap your mind around that and sip on that tea.
The Jarrett tweet ignites a raging social firestorm.
Reporters coming out of the bushes to get in her face, tears streaming down her eyes.
And the Roseanne revival meets a sudden, shocking end.
How can we continue if the world thinks you're a racist?
And they can all kiss my ass.
Do you regret your Twitter post? Do you think your career has taken a big hit?
I'm not going to talk to you except for to say, have a nice day. I believe in one law for all people. I love all people. Thank you.
Are you going to stay on Twitter?
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Roseanne Barr's triumphant return to network television was suddenly and shockingly eclipsed by one of her tweets, which appeared to be a racially insensitive attack on former Obama presidential advisor, Valerie Jarrett.
I think there were all sorts of calls between ABC probably and the producers and back and forth.
When they called me up, they're like, what possible excuse have you got for why you did this? Why you did such an egregious, unforgivable thing? And I said, I have no excuse. The only thing is, I thought she was white. And they said nothing back. And then I just said, let me go on The View tomorrow and explain that and apologize that, I've made a mistake.
You wouldn't even give her an opportunity to explain herself. You wouldn't give her an opportunity to say, wait a minute, let me talk to this woman because that was not my intent at all.
Instead, it's just thrown into a pond of crap and not explained. And once it's out there, you can't backpedal and apologize because nobody will think it's sincere no matter what.
Within hours, Roseanne was canceled.
ABC, Disney, the whole brand weighed the pros and the cons, and they decided, even though they would have made millions, the backlash could have cost them millions.
If they thought they were going to lose people, why didn't they just leave her there and see what happened to the ratings? It wouldn't have gone anywhere. Probably would have gone up.
I was up in the mountains, not a care in the world. And then all of a sudden, I get an email from my partner, Howard Pearl. He says, you can't believe what just happened. She made this terrible tweet. And I can't remember if it was immediate or if there was, how long the lag was between where people were hearing about that tweet and when we heard we were no longer working. I went from working on the #1 show in the world to unemployed in about 2 hours is what that's the way I kind of remember it.
I mean, it's so fast. I felt terrible for her. How she finally got back on the horse, succeeded, and it went right down the toilet.
I watched her go from that proud mother, coming back to her childhood home, giving her mom a hug, walking into the bedroom in the house she grew up in. I watched her go from that, literally overnight, into a woman sitting in an alley.
Roseanne!
Reporters coming out of the bushes to get in her face, smoking cigarettes, tears streaming down her eyes. Looked like she just rolled out of bed with no sleep. That's what I saw.
I thought it was unfair for them to put a woman out of Hollywood when I know this woman behind the scenes when no cameras were on and no one was recording. And I hear Roseanne Barr fighting for causes dealing with Black people. So when people said, you gotta throw her away, I said, listen, guys, I cannot throw my sister away.
This isn't Jeffrey Epstein. This is a tweet. Okay, yes, it's horrible what's said, but there's many people who have said horribly controversial things that still have their jobs.
They walked her to the door. So why was she the exception?
Witch burning, that's what it is. Intellectual witch burning and arrogance and ignorance. All of the press of the United States and the world, how they interpreted my tweet without any knowledge of the fact that I was sending it to a journalist in Iran about what was happening to the people in Iran. We're under such terrible censorship, and it's just terrible and frightening.
Roseanne was defensive at first, but later posted an apology for making a joke about Jarrett's politics and her looks. She called the tweet wrong and indefensible, but amid the stark divisions in American political thought, the damage had been done.
I would like a little more room in this country for listening to someone and having a little grace and accepting apologies and looking at their totality of their record and who they are. And I just don't think she's this racist that she was made out to be.
She's very involved in different charities. She's helped individuals. She's put a kid or two through school that has nothing to do with her family. People that fight causes, you might find secretly some of her money's behind them. It's who she really is.
Roseanne came to an agreement with ABC and the show's producers, relinquishing her financial interest in a spin-off titled The Conners. And within 3 weeks, the show was back on the air without the woman who made it all possible.
She had to sign off to allow that show to continue, of course. And if she would have stuck to her guns, the threat was everybody'd be out of work. Forget the actors, because they should have stood up for her. But there's 200 other people that have nothing to do with it. The cameraman, the makeup, everybody. So in order for them to keep going, she bowed out gracefully, financially and physically. If she was this vindictive racist, she would have put everybody out of work.
It speaks a lot about her character, in my humble opinion.
Since the fateful tweet, Roseanne has kept a low profile, spending time with family and friends.
She building sandcastles with the grandbaby. I'm seeing a sister that's saying, you know what? I'm gonna enjoy the moments that I'm in right now.
What I love about her is there's next to nothing you can say that can shock her. God almighty, when you talk about an open-minded person, when you talk about spontaneity, it's just fantastic. She's as original as it gets.
Most of my life now is, very physical, out in the yard, doing my weeding. And then the rest of my life is very intellectual, reading. I do a lot of reading. And music and comedy, writing jokes and watching comics. I've created a couple of new shows, and I just will have to decide if I really want to do them. What I really would love to do is have a place in Vegas where my fans that come see me and, keep me busy writing jokes every day. I'd be so happy. So we'll see if that ever works out.
Roseanne Barr has already made one great career comeback. It's possible that the domestic goddess can do it again.
She has been hit so hard several times and just keeps getting up.
Roseanne did a terrible thing, but I think there's always going to be an audience for Roseanne.
I truly believe that Roseanne can make a comeback. There's nobody better and more open to talk about mistakes and where they are now and how they dealt with it than somebody who is honestly one of the most authentic voices of our time.
Does she want to make a comeback? I don't know. If she wants to come back and never does, it's on America more than her for just being unforgiving and just too binary and just like, oh, you have to go away forever. I'm just not down with that. So I hope if she wants to come back, we see her again. I miss her.
My only regret is that I didn't have to sleep around much to win this award.
You will see Roseanne again. You're not going to stop her from performing. Of course, her fans know better.
When I look back, I'm like, you know what? There's nobody who's done what I did. And I'm really proud of that I was in the arena. That's pretty amazing for a woman who didn't finish 9th grade. I went in some pretty big arenas, and I fought in them, and I won in most of them. There's a couple that haven't finished yet, but I'll win.
While doing battle in the public arena, Roseanne has always appreciated the people who have been in her corner.
I just always want to thank my fans for being my fans and knowing I'm not as stupid as everybody's saying I am. I'm very, very proud of the Roseanne show and all that I put into it. It was always a joy to do that show. They can never take that away, nor can they ever take away that I came back after 20 years and I was #1 again. And that's all due to my wonderful fans that are with me for 30-some years. I'm so grateful that they love the Roseanne Show. Thank you so very much.